This is the fuel injector electrical plug rail, and each one of these is a little EV1 type Bosch connector, and because they're very old and lots of heat cycles, they crack and break and end up like this one, which just snapped when I removed it off of the injectors. Well, actually it snapped when I pulled the retainer off because it's just crumbling and dead. So the trick with these is there's a little notch in the top and bottom of that plus symbol, and that is where the terminal latches sit that prevent you from easily being able to remove the terminals. And the terminals, if you don't know, they're just the pins crimped on the end of the wires that go into the actual plug housing. And so what I'm doing is I'm removing the terminals from the original housing and then putting it into these new ones that I've got here. And it's relatively easy to do once you've made the right tools or bought the right tools. You can buy tools off of eBay, but what I've chosen to do is make my own little tools, and it's not picking it up too well, but they're just very, very skinny at the end, and they've got to be thin enough to fit the X, and they're just curved up a little bit, and I've done that with a ballpoint hammer on an anvil and a file to correct the width, and that pretty much slots into here like so, and then that pushes the sides of the latches on the terminals and allows you to get it out, and I'll just demonstrate that now. So pretty much what you're trying to do is get the tool in the top part of that notch and put it against the terminal, and the terminals have little prongs that hold it in place, and you're trying to push that prong up in the terminal away from my desk, essentially, so up towards the sky, and then with that other tool I'm just pushing it out, and the reason there's so much resistance is because the rear's not crimped, and so it was getting caught a bit, but it's reasonably easy once you get the prong pushed up. Sorry for the poor color choices, but that's basically a diagram there. That blue line is indicating the tool, the green is the terminal, and the red is the plug. So you're trying to push the green prong up so it'll go in the shallow channel in the red. And I've just drawn red lines where the prongs are on the terminals. And here's just another photo highlighting those prongs. You pretty much want to get it on both sides of the terminal until you hear a little click on both sides, and it should release the terminal, and then you can push it out the back, and I'll show you what it looks like after. And this is another step you've got to do. There's little rubber retainers around the back of each terminal that just wraps around the back of here and holds it in place with this little part. So what I've done is I've put a pick in as close to the edge here and picked under and pulled it out like that, and then pulled it out and over, and then trying to pull it around and off, and then that lets these little Bosch connectors free, and then that can also help with getting access to the terminal latches. So yeah, this better describes what I mean. It's just this little rubber retainer that sits over these two wires, and then it holds this in place. So now I can pull the Bosch connector out. You've got to do it at a slight angle because the hole is not as big as the end of the connector. go. So now that's free. It's not as much slack on this one, but as you can see, it's now free, and that retainer was just sitting around here. And so this one's broken, and so now I'm going to have a go at removing the terminals and pulling it off and putting a new one on. And then it's as easy as doing the reverse. You plug the terminals into here, make sure the wires go back in the same way. You pop it back out, and then you pop the retainer back on, and then you've got a brand new one like that in there, versus these old ones which are crusty and breaking. But I'm only going to replace the ones that I actually need to replace, because it's kind of a pain in the ass. And then just like that, the terminal is removed from the plug, and yeah, you just got to do that. Just got to do it in the top and the bottom. And the trick is not to actually force it really hard, because that'll just wreck everything. The way you do it is you do it very gently, until you can hear a slight click, or you feel it'll push in, and then you'll feel it go past where it is like the release point. And you want to be really gentle and really slow and feel it and listen to it, and you'll usually hear a little click, or you'll feel it move past the pressure point and it'll release. And then what I do is I just use another like pick tool, and I push down in the middle of my two little pickers, and then it's like a total of 3 going into the hole, and the middle one's just after it's released to push it through, and then that releases the terminal. And if it's not coming all the way out, just pull it from the back gently like that, and it'll come free. Alrighty, so that's the terminal off now. I find with my picks that I'm using to release the terminals, one's just slightly better than the other. So I just pop it in and listen for a click with the better tool. And if there's one stubborn side, I'll use the better tool on the stubborn side, and then use the opposite tool on the easier side. And you just got to play with it a bit, and eventually it'll release. And as you can see here, the terminals just have little prongs on the back. It's not picking it up too well, but I'll show you better later. But there's just prongs on the back that hold it in place, and those prongs are what you're trying to push down and then push the terminal out the back. Alrighty, so that's all fixed now. All the ones I needed to be replaced. And one of my tricks that I used is on the back of these retainers on the back here, I just used a 12mm. You could probably use an 11 or a 10, and just used it to push down either side of the retainer. It's just a rubber thing there, and at the same time you have to support it from the bottom and push it over the cap, and I just used a spanner to do that.